Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti. I am MrPhotographer.com. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 Luminar tips that will make your photos look awesome. And we're going to jump right into it with tip number 1, profiles. I truly believe that many photographers don't take advantage of profiles. And profiles really will give you the opportunity to give your image a different look. Now, maybe the reason why people don't use profiles too much when using Luminar is because they're kind of hidden. They're in the Essentials panel under the Light tab. And if you go down here to Advanced Settings, you'll see right at the top, Profile. And by the way, you'll only see that if you're working on a RAW file. Now, by default, whenever you open a RAW file in Luminar, it's going to apply the Luminar default profile. And profiles really will fundamentally change the color, tone, and contrast to your image. So if we open this up, you could see what profiles are available for this specific RAW file. This is a Nikon RAW file, and you can see that it has Adobe Standard, Camera Vivid, Camera Landscape, and you can see how the color, tone, and contrast is changing with each of these profiles. That's why I recommend that you do profiles first. Choose your profile right away, the first thing you do in your workflow, then do your processing after it. Because these change the color, tone, and contrast to your image, it's ridiculous to think that you could process an image, then just change the profile, and you're going to magically have a beautiful image. Do the profile first, then do the processing after it. Now, you're not limited to these profiles that come with this specific RAW file. And by the way, these will change depending on your camera and camera manufacturer. So you may have something different listed here. But you're not limited to that. You could see right here, we could load a custom DCP profile. So if you use something like the X-Rite Color Checker, you could use that in the software that comes with it to create a profile and then load that profile into Luminar. Another great feature, little known, little used, is the next choice. Load DC profile from DNG. For example, those of you that shoot Fuji knows that Fuji's profiles are called film simulation modes. And a lot of people love those film simulation modes, and a lot of people that use other manufacturers' cameras kind of envy the Fuji shooters that have those great film simulation modes and wish they could use them with their RAW files for their cameras. Well, in a way you can here. Look at load DCP profile from DNG. What I did was I took a Fuji RAW file, not this image, this is a Nikon RAW file. And I took a Fuji RAW file, I applied the classic Chrome film simulation mode to it, which is a profile, right? Then I exported that Fuji RAW file as a DNG file. Now watch, load DCP profile from DNG. This is that image that has that classic Chrome profile applied to it. I'll just open it, and now I applied the classic Chrome film profile to this image. And this goes to if you've purchased profiles from a third party. For example, I sell Lightroom profiles. If you bought those, let's say, and you're using Lightroom, but you're going to switch over to Luminar, what you could do is, let's say you have a really favorite profile that I sold you. You could apply that to a RAW file, export that RAW file as a DNG, and then just load it here. So we'll go to the profile, and here's one that I'll go down to load DCP profile from DNG, and here's one that I created for Lightroom called Big Sky. We'll just click open, and it applies it to the image. And you can see after you apply them, they'll stay here. So they're right here. So you don't have to keep reloading them. And if you want to delete them, there's a little X next to that. So you could click on that little X and kind of clean up your profiles if you want to. So profiles, I mean, use them because it really will fundamentally change the look of your image. Now, I mentioned the profiles are really only available if you're shooting RAW. Well, what about everyone else, or if you have a TIFF file or JPEG or something? Well, that brings us to tip number 2, LUTs. LUTs are just like profiles, and LUTs are over here in the Creative or the tab, and they're right here, Color LUTs. And again, LUTs will fundamentally change the color, tone, and contrast to your image. Do them early in your workflow. If you're not, you don't have profiles available to you, use a LUT, use it first. Then do your processing after it. And you can see you could choose a LUT, and built in it has a lot of LUTs, and you could load custom LUTs. So if you purchase LUTs from someone like me, you could load them there, and you could go down and just, again, you could see how these fundamentally really change the look of an image. And if you choose a LUT like sepia, let's say, then you could change the amount, the contrast, and the saturation of the specific LUT you changed. And of course you could edit the mask as well. So if you only want the LUT to be applied to a specific part of the image, you could do that with the mask. So that's tip number 2. Take advantage of LUTs. They really will help you give your image a unique look. Now number 3, order of processing. After many, many years of processing images, I've really come to the conclusion that there is an order that works best. Number 1, what you should do first is apply that profile or LUT. Do that is your first thing. Number 2, do any adjustments that affect tone. So in this case, for this image, we would go, up to the Essentials tab, and you would go to Light, let's say, and you would do exposure, smart contrast, highlights, shadows, whites and blacks. That would be anything that has to do with tone. Also, contrast. You don't have to do it under the Light tab. You could do AI Enhance if you want. But anything that will really affect tone, that's the second thing you should do. The third thing you do after you do your tone adjustments is noise reduction. So go down to denoise and reduce noise, and zoom in. Make sure that you're getting rid of the luminosity and the color noise. That's the third thing you should do. The fourth thing you should do is do any color adjustments. So even if you're just adding some saturation, or you're going to specifically change or enhance specific colors, anything you're doing with color, you do fourth. And then finally, the last thing you do before you are done exporting your image is you should sharpen. So save sharpening for last. Now in Luminar, there's a lot of different ways to sharpen an image. You just don't have one filter for sharpening. I mean, structure will sharpen an image. There's a lot of different filters throughout Luminar which will add sharpness to the image. And so anything that will do that, save for last. That way you'll come out with the best image with the lowest noise possible, but still the sharpest image possible. So that's it. The order of processing is number 3. Number 4, if you are using looks, a lot of people overlook this feature of looks, is that there is a amount slider built in with looks. For example, if I add this look down here, I called Cabin in the Woods. This is one of the looks that I sell. You could see that it applied it to the image. Now, that you might like that, but maybe that's a little bit too much for you. Well, there is an amount slider right here. Just take advantage of the amount slider and dial it back so it's not as overwhelming. That way, a lot of these looks that may on first glance look really bad, what you could do then is, once it applies, is just dial it down and you'll get a much better look with your looks. So that's number 4. And number 5 is really just simple. Know when to stop. There's just so many filters in Luminar. I mean, dozens and dozens of filters here. Just know when to stop. Because it's easy to just get overboard. And the more we sit in front of our computer and look at the same image, the more our eyes get fatigued and our brain gets tired. And you'll start doing processing that you won't notice that is adversely affecting the image. So know when to stop. Walk away, come back later, look at it, and then you'll probably say, oh yeah, I overdid it. So that's it. Just those 5 tips. Profiles, LUTs, the order of processing. Again, the order of processing. Apply your profile or LUT first. Do tone adjustment second. Do noise reduction third. Do color fourth. And then sharpen the image at the end. Then finally, remember there's an amount control if you're using looks. And then finally, just know when to stop. Thank you, everyone who watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.